All right, so I'm very excited today to bring my first ever guest on A Beautiful Future, my good friend Gino Pastori-Ng. He is a multi-talented individual. He's a leader in bringing up youth and supporting youth in making their lives better. He's also a great writer and musician, and I'm just honored to know him. The first thing is welcome, Gino, and I'd love to have you share what's one fundamental quality of a beautiful future that you see in your vision.
Yes, thank you, James. I'm honored to be your first participant in a beautiful future. And it was very hard to choose just one. I think for me, what's at the core of the beautiful future is creativity. And for me, I see creativity and the creative spark or impulse as the voice of my ancestors and the voice of future generations urging me towards something. And so whenever I feel that creative impulse, the desire to create, I honor it in that way. That it doesn't belong to me. This is something that is trying to be birthed through me. And I see all creativity in that way, like whatever impulse led you to create this podcast, the impulse that led to the co-creation of the youth organization where we first met. I see that all as our ancestors and future generations pointing us towards something that we don't fully understand why it's necessary or what we're doing, but we just feel that drive to create. And I think in order to get out of the mess we're in, we really have to listen to that and get out of the dominance of logical linear thinking, which I think has got us fully into this mess. And I know a lot of really brilliant logical people who have not been able to solve these problems. And I think we're in a state of surrender. We need to open up to new forms of wisdom. And I think creativity is the way to open up to that.
Beautiful. So you mentioned supporting youth and co-creating some amazing programs around that I was lucky to be a part of. Do you have an idea now, looking back, what drove you other than the creative pulse? What was that desire, that outcome that you wanted for those kids' futures?
I think it all sparked from being trying to be the person that I wish I had as a young person. Someone who said like what you are interested in matters and follow that, pursue it with everything you have, and here's some resources to try to do it. Not here, fit into this really boring, soul crushing box that's been pre-designed for you because that's the way it's been done and that's the way we're going to keep doing it. So I really wanted to create that feelings for young people. Yes, your ideas matter. We need your ideas actually. And here are some resources to follow through with that. And I think the goal was that young people will feel like, yes, I'm here to create something uniquely mine, not to follow the status quo that is causing so much devastation and death, but burst and create something more beautiful.
Man, that speaks to me. That speaks to me. Yeah, I see that mentoring is definitely a huge part of my vision for a beautiful future where young people are mentored by the elders who see their gifts and acknowledge and celebrate the gifts of the young people so that they know they are wanted and they're needed by the community. So that's huge.
Most definitely.
That's, yeah.
Yeah. I have to take that opportunity to jump to the second candidate on my list for the topic,
Go
which
for
was
it.
initiation and rites of passage.
Mm.
as a key element of the beautiful future, that everyone needs to be initiated into adulthood and have a support around finding their gifts and being able to share them with the community. And I know myself and many of the people I grew up with did not have that. And we reached too many destructive attempts to initiate ourselves into adulthood. And the world is being led by people who were not initiated into adulthood with devastating consequences. So I think it's very connected to creativity. Is like all young people need to be supported in finding that gift and sharing it with the community.
Mm. Yeah, that's so key. I also see that as a fundamental part of a beautiful future. And I'm a big fan of initiation, rites of passage. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up adults and adulthood because right now there's a lot of talk about masculinity and all this stuff. Yeah, I don't think this masculine, feminine thing is necessarily the right frame. It's adults. We need adults. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be an adult? Just straight up man, woman, in between. That to me is more important in a lot of ways than trying to separate it out in that in a way a lot of this false dichotomy of man woman has been pushed on us. So I'm glad you
Yeah.
mentioned
Everyone
adults.
needs to be initiated and take accountability for themselves, which most people in adult bodies, I do not see doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. You're hitting major elements that I see in a beautiful future as well. Just give a sense of how that feels in your body, or what is the experience like? Can you describe it of what it's like to be alive in that world?
Yeah, and I've I've felt it in my body, and I think the primary way that I felt this way is through freestyle, just spontaneous rap, which we've done before, and I've been doing for over 20 years. And it's probably the time in my life where I feel the most free, and I don't have my inner critic or my judgment of self, like I'm not good enough, or all the inner voices that are detrimental and harmful to me get put on pause when I'm just spontaneously creating without any thought of what's going to come out or fear of what it might be. And with my brother Adam Rosendahl, we led this workshop called Free Your Freestyle probably about a dozen times with people from ages 8 to 80. And most people do not identify as being creative or being an artist or being confident, spontaneously expressing themselves. But every time at the end of this workshop, like every single person who's been there has been able to do it. And the feeling of freedom and connection that emerges when everyone feels seen for sharing whatever comes through their mind, no matter how wild or nonsensical it might be, is that's a beautiful future that I have inhabited where no one's feeling like they're not an artist or they have nothing to contribute, but everyone feeling seen for whatever they brought to the circle.
Mm, yeah, man. I see in that what strikes me is a feeling of flow, being being in flow. Like you said, when there's no thinking, there's no critic, there's no limitations. And that was a part of these notes I've been taking is one of the experiences that I think will be common is working in a state of flow in the beautiful future.
Also, I would say belonging will be a core feeling that is
Hmm.
central to the beautiful future, where with creativity, like most people are told very early on, you're not an artist, you're not a creative, and that part of them gets shut down. And actually, in elementary school, I was identified as a creative, like artsy kid, because I knew how to draw. And that made me an outcast and like different. And I didn't want that. And I actually stopped creating because I didn't want to be that different.
Ooh.
And so that whole putting creativity in a little tiny box for a few people hurts everyone. And in the beautiful future, I see it's just something that everyone does, and it doesn't drive any disconnection. Everyone has something to create, and there's a sense of belonging. There's no questioning like, am I good enough or do I belong here?
Yes, man. Beautiful. Belonging. Belonging. That sounds like a core fundamental experience of a beautiful future. It's easy to see a lot of these things we're talking about, just how missing they are. Yeah, man. Beautiful visions, Gino. Thank you for sharing these. Was there any other things that came up as you were inquiring about your vision of a beautiful future that we didn't cover?
Just to keep riffing on creativity thread, you and I are both parents, and I see parenting as central to how we're going to get to the beautiful future, and that the desire to be a parent and create a child physically is for me the ultimate creative impulse. And it doesn't necessarily take a lot to physically create a child, but to really raise a child intentionally and mindfully, I feel is like an artistic endeavor for life, um, and has been an initiation for me, which I'm still in, of being forced to examine all of my baggage from my own childhood and doing as much work as I can to not pass on the detrimental parts to the next generation, but very mindfully raise them in the ways of the beautiful future
Mm.
and encouraging them to move in that direction and not follow the status quo with doom that we're headed towards, but really encourage them on whatever creative impulses arise in them.
Absolutely. I'm totally on board with that. Definitely so supportive of my kids and my nieces and nephews. And any young people that I come around, I try to play that role of seeing talent. Of course, my days as a talent show host are speak to that. Yeah, man. No, that's so key. And maybe just share a little bit before we go here about your writing that you're doing, if you want anyone to know about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say what really sparked my current writing is the birth of my son Tashan, and just being completely humbled by the experience of being a new dad and all the things I had to figure out. And writing became the only way I found to process what was happening for me. And so I've written a lot about that experience and have a vision of turning that into a book. And since then, I've also been working on a novel that's semi-autobiographical about my experience growing up in Oakland. And it has the elements of rites of passage and initiation. I basically rewrote my childhood in a fantasy way of what could have happened to me if I had the proper initiation. So that's been something very healing that I'm excited to share with the world soon. Yeah, and I have a website and a Substack where I share my writings and encourage people to find my work there.
Beautiful. Yeah, I will put links to those as part of this episode. Cool, man. Yeah, Gino, this is really amazing. Thanks for sharing your vision and your creativity and your vision of a creative, beautiful future. I think is foundational
You're
and
very
key.
welcome. Thank you for
Yeah,
inviting me to share.
Yeah, man. If you're open to it, if you wouldn't mind dropping a little bars for us, it'll be lovely to hear your voice and your creativity come through.
All right, I'm gonna go for it.
Hell yeah.
Usually I do this with a beat, so I'll see how it turns out.
Yep.
Yo, I'm kicking it with James. Things will never be the same, 'cause we're headed to a plane where division has no name, 'cause we know we're all the same, all bonded in that unity, all the trees and the human beings, sitting in a beautiful circle, looking at the color purple, the whole spectrum and the hues, rainbows coming down from the pews, living life exactly how we choose, seeing life from each other's shoes. No time to snooze, but plenty time to rest, so we can all create that beautiful nest of the future.
Yes. Oh, bro. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother James.
Beautiful. Yeah. All right, Gino. I appreciate it, brother. And many blessings to you, Taishan, Tala, Maya, and your whole network and community.
And to you, brother. My